Okay,
Why?
so we're streaming again.
But why is it not showing us up? We're streaming down there.
No, it should be up here. I don't know why it's not showing. Maybe it's is a delay, you know.
Let me go on my phone.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so
Why?
we're streaming again.
But why is it not
Let me
showing
see
us
if
up? We're streaming
audio.
down there.
No, it should be up here. I don't know why it's not
You
showing.
hear us?
Maybe it's is a delay, you know.
Let me go on my phone.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so
Why?
we're streaming again.
But why is
Hi,
it
y'all.
not
Hold on a
showing
second.
us we're streaming down there.
No, it should be up here. I don't know why it's. Maybe it's is a delay, you know.
Let me
Okay. Pardon us as we gather ourselves. Give us a second, cause. All right, let's start over. In 5, 4. Hold on, let me get my notes.
This is
Ghetto.
ratchet and
It's ghetto.
ghetto.
Yes, it is.
That's all right. We're gonna get it together, y'all.
In 5, 4, 3.
Action.
Welcome back. I'm Heath,
I'm Bernie.
and it's the Heath and Bernie Show. Yeah. What's up, people? This is round 2 of our attempt to stream today. So we started earlier and we got started. But we are a Black Christian married couple that's been married 27 years.
There you go.
We have been
Get it
working
right,
as
get it right.
relationship consultants for
Yep.
25 with couples and singles
Yeah.
for 25 of those 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And today we are talking about communication, but not just communication, specifically communication or communicating your needs to your mate. And not just communicating your needs to your mate, communicating your needs to your mate first before you first are communicating your needs to yourself so that you can clearly understand what you need to communicate to your mate. And not just communicating those needs to your mate once you understand them yourselves, but what do you do when you've communicated those needs and you're not getting those needs sent back to you in return? What do you do then? And if you stay to the end, we're going to talk about if none of that stuff ever works, when is it time to move on?
Uh-oh.
When is it time to like chuck up the deuces and be like, you know what, I'm out? And we're talking about dating and engaged couples and married couples from a biblical standpoint.
Uh-oh.
So that's what we're talking about today. Bernie, how are you doing?
I am retired.
Yes, you are.
I'm fine.
It's not fair.
I'm a little tired, but I'm fine.
It's not fair. I have to go to work. See, Bernie
I
likes
paid my dues.
But
I
see,
did my time.
Bernie likes to
Yes.
be like, oh, I'm going to stay up and because I don't have to go to work tomorrow. And then when she does that, she
Not
just wants
all
to
the
chat
time.
and, you know, she's got a whole bunch of energy. And so
Yeah.
I like, okay, yeah, I want to go to bed.
He's
and
a
so
night owl, though.
Yeah, but we didn't go to bed till 1 something last night. And I had to get up at 6 this morning.
I couldn't sleep, so I left you in the room and came down.
And
Then
so
I think I went to bed at 6.
Yeah, she got up when I was getting up, getting ready to go to work at 6 o'clock.
I got up. No, I got into bed and you were getting.
That's what I just said.
You said I got up.
I said, oh, I did?
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm tired today because
doing
Bernie
that-
had me up all night.
Doing
and
that
then,
backward stuff.
Yeah,
When you're tired, you do that.
That does happen. Anyway, so let's jump into it. So before we get into it, I put a poll out on our community tab in
did?
YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did. And on that community poll, there was a question that there was 4 or 5 things about what it is that you wanted us to talk about. And so on a 2-to-1 margin, you had balancing Could you read that?
Balancing independence and togetherness versus how communication styles affect relationships.
And so we had a 2-to-1 margin of people wanting us to talk about balancing independence and togetherness.
Really?
Yeah.
Balancing independence and togetherness.
Yep.
That's interesting.
That's what we talked. We talked about that last year with Sean and Latavia.
Latavia?
Yeah.
Oh, like, not losing yourself when you
Yeah.
get married.
So we'll be talking about that in the near future. But today we're talking about a topic that, like I said, is, I think it's a nuanced topic.
Wait, so the poll was both and how?
There was 4, I think I put up there. And
So they also did how do you communicate styles affect relationships?
there was only 2 that people selected, and then balancing independence and togetherness was the one that people selected more.
Oh, versus how communication styles affect.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about that. And so thank you for putting your thoughts and concerns in the poll. I just threw it out there just to see what would happen, to see if we'd get anybody to take anything, and we did. And so I was like, hey, let's see if we can do another one and see if we can get other people to engage with us about what they want us to talk about. So please go ahead and leave your comments in the community tab, or leave your comments in the chat for this episode, because this episode is going to be kind of deep. It's going to be kind of deep, in my opinion. We'll see, though.
I was going to say, really deep? Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. What we're going to do, there was a video. So there's a series that I'm working on. And the series is regarding dealing with men. Yes, I did.
Okay.
The series is dealing with men. And I'm asking men questions like, okay, what is it that from a man's standpoint you want to hear? Or you want to learn, not even hear on a podcast, but what from a man's standpoint do you want to learn about? What things do you want to hear people talking about so that you can get a better understanding about how you can move and maneuver in your marriage? So I was at church and I ran across a friend named Joe, and he shared with us these thoughts. Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
What are some of the things that men really want to find out about relationships? What are some of the things that husbands want to find out about?
Just like you just said, it's about talking. It's about opening up. Just like Pastor Page just said today, you got to know yourself in conversations with yourself first before you even had that conversation with your wife. Yeah, you may have said I do, but at the beginning, did you really open up? Did you open up in that conversation truthfully when y'all was in that dating stage? So you got to communicate with each other. You got to communicate with yourself first so that you'll know. It's like going to the McDonald's or something, like a menu board. You look at that menu board and you're ordering exactly what it is that you want. So in a lot of conversation when it comes to marriage, a lot of people don't know exactly what they want in their marriage because they never open up to see what's on the menu board.
So what are your thoughts about that, Bernie? What?
A lot of thoughts. Let's see. He was, I don't know, when he was saying, I feel like when he was saying a lot of people, did he say a lot of people don't know what they want?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because I feel like a lot of times people are not aware of their wants and needs and thoughts, because they don't even, it's hard for you to tell somebody else that when you're not aware of like who you are as a person. And I think people, there's a lot of introspection. Is that a word?
Introspection.
Okay. That's what I said. Is that a word?
Yes.
Yeah. That I think people need to do on themselves to know what they may want. It's just, you just have to be aware of like who you are.
One of the things that he pointed out was that, you have to communicate with yourself first.
Yeah.
So that you can know how to communicate with others. And that struck me because I started to say before we started this is that one of the things that we do really, really well is focus on the very minute nuances of relationships and find like the kernel, the nugget in there that is affecting like most of the issues in relationships.
It's usually a really tiny thing, but it's so hard to get the people just to see that little thing that's
Yeah.
making this big old noise or a big old problem, it's usually just this one little
Yeah.
thing.
And we can like parse through all of the things and be like, okay, that's what it is. And then we test it out to see if that actually is what it is. And when we find out that's what it is, then we're like, okay, now we can address it. And so when he talked about the menu board and being able to pick something from the menu board, but you have to know what it is you want first. And that got me to the point, got me thinking about the question, like, okay, where do you start in terms of your communication? And it's not, you don't start at the place of where you communicate what it is that you want. You start with communicating with yourself first about what it is you want. So do you think people, Bernie, are transparent about who they are and why or why not?
I don't think all people are transparent at the beginning of who they are because I think they don't even know themselves.
Mhm.
Like they're not aware of their own needs and wants or issues or whatever. And some people are, but some people are not.
Okay.
Like I said, introspective of themselves. And sometimes they are, and they know about the bad things about themselves or the negative things, and that's the stuff they hide that they're not transparent about. They are aware of that stuff, real aware. Mother freakers. But they won't let you know about that. You find out about that stuff later. But anyway, yeah, some people are aware, but some people are not. But what was your question?
I was asking you, do you think that people are transparent about who they are?
Not all people, but some people are.
And I asked that question on the heels of having conversations with yourself, because do you think that people understand who they are so that they communicate transparently who they are, or are they just communicating who they think that they are?
You can't communicate who you are if you don't know like who you are.
Yeah, you can communicate who you think that you are.
Well, that's what's communicating.
Yeah.
That's what's
And then when
coming across.
And then when people get involved into an interaction with you, they find a different person or they interact with you differently than you think a person should interact with you because of who you think you are.
Yeah, you're not aware of what's coming off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I asked, when are they and when are they not transparent? And I think that was the answer to the question. Like, when they're not transparent is when either they're hiding something or they don't know.
Yeah.
They're being as transparent as they think that they are, but they don't have a good understanding of themselves. So him talking to Joe talking about the menu board, I think was very enlightening. And I think having a good understanding of yourself, you need to do that before. So what conversations do you need to have with yourself is the question that I posed.
You know, some people, seriously.
First, what conversation do you need to have with yourself first before you start bringing people into your life?
Trying to connect that to somebody. Right. You know, seriously, some people deal with a lot of trauma coming up as a child. It could be anything, you know, it could be all the way to the left or just small little things that is causing trauma in your life. And you probably, I feel like some people need some therapy about that, and they don't know that they may need therapy about that because it's making them react or communicate a certain way, but they don't even know that that's happening because they have not really addressed the trauma. They're just kind of living life.
Yeah. And I think therapy has been a huge thing that couples are now going to, and they're doing more often. Oops, sorry. They're doing more often. I'm over here pressing buttons, and I showed my notes accidentally.
You're talking, but you got on me. Sorry.
No, I don't.
Oh, it's delayed? I don't know.
It's delayed. Or is it? I'm confused.
I'm so tired. Sorry. I shouldn't have kept you up.
No, you shouldn't have.
Sorry.
Oh.
There we go.
Okay. All right. See, this is what happens when you do live studio stuff. But you know what? What? What was I saying?
You were saying some couples are getting into therapy and stuff.
People getting into therapy and they're starting to find their safe space in therapy so that they can discover themselves.
Therapy on their own, not together. Like making sure they
I think
both.
just the movement towards therapy is now a thing.
Yeah.
It's been a
We
thing.
hear-
It's not even
yeah.
now a thing. It's been a thing, and it's actually accepted. I was listening to somebody say that she won't consider marrying somebody unless they go to therapy.
Well, I mean, before, no, people didn't want to talk about it. It's okay now.
Yeah.
People don't seem to be afraid to mention it and stuff now.
So that conversation that you have with yourself, I think, is key. From our experience, I wrote down some things that I think that the conversations that you need to have with yourself before you start getting involved with someone else and trying to communicate like what it is that you want. And number one is, what are you afraid of, and what are you protecting yourself from? What are you afraid of, and what are you protecting yourself from? And that came up when we were doing a boot camp one time, and we were doing a boot camp with a client. I can't remember, but we were talking to somebody, and everything they said was coming from a place of fear and protection. And it was coming from a place of, I don't want to be hurt. It was giving, I don't trust you. And so I asked the question, I said, what are you afraid of, or what are you protecting? And she was like real silent and was like, wow, that's a good question. And it took her a while to answer that. I knew the answer already, but I was just seeing if she knew. And when she told me the answer, I was able to point to how everything that she said was a protection from her receiving that, or trying to prevent something from happening to her.
It's from some trauma that she dealt with in her
Most
life.
likely. And and that's fair. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying she shouldn't have that, because people,
No,
we
you just need to be
know all too
aware.
well about self-preservation mode.
Yeah.
And when you're in a posture of, I'm trying to protect myself from this person or from being hurt, and we was watching a podcast yesterday,
Yeah.
and it seemed like this woman who was 10 toes down,
Oh my gosh.
she was 10 toes down on her position about what it is she feels that a woman should do when she's considering dating and marriage.
And opening up when she's
Yeah.
starting to get
Yeah.
serious, opening up,
And she was saying that I need the password to his,
like on day 7 or something.
well, I need the
don't know.
password to his phone. And if she wasn't saying I need it on day 7, but she's saying when we start getting close to one another, I'm going to ask for your password to your phone. So if you don't want to give me your password to your phone down the road, then we probably should stop right now. Which, the podcast that she was on, the gentleman was like, that sounds kind of like, the trust issues and stuff like that. And she was defending herself, saying, no, I don't even need to go into your phone. I don't even want to go into it. But it's safety for me to know that you gave me access to your phone, which from her perspective, I can understand why she would do that, but it still is coming from a place of defense. It's like, what are you afraid of, or what are you protecting yourself from? And so, but when you give that, I'm trying to protect myself from you energy, that's the way it comes off. Even though you may be thinking that I want to communicate that I'm trying to live my soft life, but yet you're already speaking to me like you don't trust me, even though you're not intending on doing that.
Right.
What did I experience in my past that blessed me and cursed me? What did I experience in my past that blessed me? That was a blessing, and that was a curse to me. So that allows you to go into your past. Now, we are not therapists. We are consultants, relationship consultants. And so there are therapy models that allow you, that help you go and dig deep into like the recesses of your past and stuff. If you're trying to do that stuff yourself, a question to ask is, what are some of the things from my past that were a blessing, and what were some of that were a curse? And that will give you an understanding about, okay, these things have affected me into my perspective on what has been beneficial and what has been harmful. You want to say something?
Mm-mm. Just listening.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I was going to say that.
Number 3, do my plans generally turn out the way I expect?
Expectation judgment.
Do my plans generally turn out the way they expect? Why is this here? Because this question
That's a leadership question.
is a leadership question.
It is.
And it's a question that you ask yourself when you are trying to assess your judgment, your decision making, and your expectations. Whilst I'll reverse it, your expectations, your judgment, and your decision making.
Well, you might need to back up a little bit.
Okay.
Because it says, do my plans generally turn out the way I expect? Do you have a plan? Let's just start right there. Do you have a plan?
Is that your phone?
It's over here.
Oh,
That
that's
sounded
my
like it was
phone.
over here.
Oh, I said I'm going to call somebody back.
So
Yeah. Do you have a plan?
sometimes folks don't have a plan, and so they need to just start right there.
True.
And then, then maybe you can ask that question about generally, do they turn out?
And I knew you were going to say that. Because one of the things that irks you is if there's no plan. If somebody doesn't have a plan, that's not me.
No.
Because I always have a plan.
Oh my gosh, no, I wouldn't be sitting here.
We were watching a podcast today. We were watching a podcast today, and they were talking about the fires that happened in California. And one of the gentlemen was talking about his son came to him, who was I think in college or high school, and he said, "Hey, Dad, what are we doing? What's our evacuation plan?"
What's the plan?
And his father was like, "I don't know. I don't know." He's like, "What do you mean you don't know? You
You're
don't have a
He
plan?
said, you're the parent.
You're the parent." He's like, "Just because I'm the parent, I birthed you means I have supposed to have a plan. And no fire broke out like this in California." Like, I don't know. And,
But that was a joke, though, right?
He said it was a joke later.
I hope so.
I don't know
'cause
if he
that
was
is the
covering
worst
up.
answer.
I don't know if he was covering up for the fact that after he said
That
it,
was a horrible answer to your
he
child.
probably this is how it
Anyway,
sound. I don't know. But I was like, I don't know. I wouldn't even, that's not even something I would joke about.
it has to be a joke because, and he's a comedian, so it
Yeah.
had to be a joke because you can't, in that kind of situation, it's no way he didn't have no plan.
Yeah. And he talked about the plan that he had afterwards.
Yeah. It was like way after.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Like-
you bringing that back around?
Like after somebody
Are
else
people in
said,
the comments saying, really?
after somebody else said, well, I had a plan. We were going to go do this. I had a plan B. And then
Yeah.
everybody who didn't have a plan was calling me, asking me, what are y'all doing? Because we're going with you.
Yeah.
And then that's when
And I
he was
even
like,
said-
oh, yeah, I had a plan. I have all these survival techniques.
Before he even
Whatever.
said that, I was like, I bet you that the man in that other house had a plan.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they say.
Yes. Yeah. But having a plan is necessary. Presuming that you have a plan.
Okay.
Talking about your expectations, that expectations precedes anything that you do because that is what you're hoping will be accomplished. And then your judgment is how you plan to execute to fulfill your expectation. What are your plans? Like, what are the things that you're going to do in real time to execute that expectation? Your decisions is the actual execution of that plan. So it's the expectations, the judgment, which is your plan, and then the decision, which is the execution of that plan. And the reason why you have to assess your experience in your expectation is because you need to see if your whole thought process from your expectation to your outcome, if they normally turn out the way that you want them to. Not no explanation as, oh, well, she didn't do this, he didn't do that, my boss did. No, do your plans generally turn out the way that you want them to? Because if they do, then you can readily assume to yourself that I have good decision-making skills, I have good judgment, and the things that I typically want to do that happen, if I want to do these other things, then I will be able to make them happen. And why is that important when you're talking about communicating to somebody else who you are? It's because and it goes back to your point about a plan. When you talk about, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. I have these goals, I have these dreams, I have these visions, and so forth. Are you capping when you saying that? Like, is that whole thing I'm just saying this because it sounds good, but your history of expectation, plan, and execution does not bear that you will actually achieve that which you say that you want to accomplish? Because when you are communicating this to a person, and you're
What?
when you're communicating these needs to a person, that you have these desires and expectations, and you communicate the need that you want them to help you, especially from a man's standpoint. And then they start helping you, and their help turns out to be actually doing it for you. Or they realize that they want this thing more than you do because you don't really follow through.
Or they want you to help, but they don't have no kind of information where they want you to help. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you're not trying to take it over
Right.
because you got your own stuff, but you trying to help.
Yeah.
But they don't have no like meat and potatoes so you can help with. In other words, you would have to take it over, but that's not what you're trying to do.
Right. And especially in a from a women's standpoint, if you are looking for somebody who has leadership skills and leadership ability, and you're wanting somebody to be able to like provide some guidance and structure so that you can follow them, like the Bible says you're supposed to do, then to hear somebody talk big Willie style, and then you are like, oh yeah, let me help you. I can do this, I can do that. And then you find out that this dude is not capable of doing the things that he set out to do. Sometimes people who have like a savior complex, or people who are really, really good at helps and really good at serving, and who have acts of service as a gift, they can give their whole entity into this person's vision, and then waste many, many years and find out that, oh, this is not the person. That person that we saw on the podcast, she was talking about her first engagement, and she was engaged to this dude for 6 years. And she realized he didn't have any drive.
Yeah.
And the things that she wanted to do, she was doing. And the things that he didn't really, he was like, I don't want to go nowhere. I want to do this right here. And he was perfectly content doing that.
But she said he had bread. She just was the winner.
Yeah. But in terms of goals and plans and driving.
Right. He was just a good person, but just didn't have any kind of initiative or goals or plan.
And so when you are in a relationship with somebody who talks big game, and you're talking and they lead you to believe that they can accomplish this, and with your help, y'all can make this thing really, really big. And you start to see some security and some purpose and some future in this relationship. It's disappointing, and sometimes you feel like let me try to stick in there, and hoping that it will get better, and hopefully it does, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. But
to speak to the people who are doing this, you need to have a conversation with yourself. Like, do my expectations, my plans, and then my outcomes or decisions, my expectation, judgment, and decision making, do they normally align?
What do they do when they don't normally align? What should a person do when they have that introspection about themselves, and they think about their plans, their decisions, and the judgment, and it's like, yep, I tried to do that, that didn't work, whatever.
Yeah.
So they don't go and share this when they connect with somebody. So when they connect with somebody, how do they be aware of themselves and how to be a better leader or decision maker for themselves before you try to bring that in a household and want somebody else to share that same kind of bad decision making plans and
Right.
How do you fix that with yourself?
You get my book, His Leadership, Her Trust, because I wrote all about that. How to become the Christian man or woman trusts, respects, and actually wants to follow. There's 4 steps to it. In my book, His Leadership, Her Trust, you can find on Amazon. That's how you do it.
Okay. There you have it.
Yeah, but
Shameless plug.
I talk about judgment. I talk about decision making. I talk about trust, how to build that. I talk about the conversations that you need to have with yourself and assess really who you are as a person. And I'm not talking about like you get out there and you start proclaiming, I'm going to do all these great things. But you need to have a real honest conversation with yourself to see if you are him.
And what's feasible for you.
Yeah.
Like where you are in your life, you know what I mean, at that time.
Because I know when we were married 6 years, it was year 3 that I realized that I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I was like, okay, all of my knowledge that I had before marriage has run its course.
Year 3?
Year 3.
Were we still at Torque?
We are just about to move. I think it was a little bit after. Yeah, no. It was about it was year 3. I remember year 3. I was like, okay, I knew how to get us here. We had just got out of debt. We had just got out of $35,000 worth of debt. And back in 99, that was a lot of debt. We had just started the boot camp. We just started our business that we've been in for
Okay.
25 years. We were getting ready to move. Well, we didn't know it yet until that shooting happened on our
Oh.
street. But that's what happened. There was a shooting on our corner.
Yeah, he
And-
wasn't home.
Yeah, I was at the gym and I came home and there was tape wrapped around our mailbox and crossed
And,
the street.
And was it on the gate too?
It was our mailbox is on the gate.
Oh, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
and so I was like, what the heck? And police were all on the street.
I
And
was on the ground on the floor.
I walked in the house and Bernie was like, eh. I was like, what happened? She's like, there was a shooting outside. Somebody, what happened?
It was just a bunch of shooting. It was
Right, and we had a
right
corner,
on the corner.
right on the corner of we had a corner house, and it was right at that intersection.
I didn't see what happened because I got down on the ground, but the car was left right at the intersection with the door open, and the guy ran down the hill and was crying like he was shot up, moaning on somebody's porch at the bottom of the hill, and I could hear him moaning in the house, but I didn't,
Yeah, so I came home.
What I don't do is stick my head out the window, be like, "What's going on?" We know who do that, but no. But I could see what happened after the fact.
And so I came home and Bernie was like, eh. I was like, what happened? She told me what happened. I immediately got on the computer, on the internet, and started looking for houses. And we moved 3 months later.
It was just 3 months.
Yeah,
Wow.
that happened right after. That happened shortly after 9/11.
That probably was too much for me.
I was like, oh yeah, we're out of here.
9/11.
That's anyway. What was I talking about?
I don't remember.
What was I talking
where
about?
you-
People.
You were talking about when you we had already said because you had wrote in your book how to do.
Oh,
those
R.
plans.
Lewis. Hey, R. Lewis. I'm sorry. We
Hey,
just
R. Lewis.
now checking you out. We didn't know that you I didn't have the chat up. Hi. What was I saying? I forgot.
Because I was saying, what do they do when they're being aware and trying to make those plans and it don't work out, and you told them to get your book, His Leadership or Trust, but then you went to something else.
I know. I forgot. R. Lewis, if you remember what we were talking about, could you help us with the chat? Because it's just been a long day. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, what's the next question?
I had some good days.
I
had some hills to climb. Anyway, the next question is, how do you manage conflict? You need to know how you manage conflict,
Yeah.
ma'am, sir.
Yeah. Some people, I'm one of those people. I don't like dealing with conflict. And so it's hard if you don't like dealing with conflict, but you do need to know how to manage it. I always hate when he say, I need to talk to you about something. I'm like, oh God. What?
Yeah.
What did I do?
And see, I understand the purpose of conflict. Conflict is good.
Yeah.
Conflict, you need conflict in relationships because conflict set boundaries, and I'll talk about that later on. And I'll talk about that. But you need to learn. How do you manage conflict? Because how you manage conflict will determine how many arguments you're going to get in and how much dysfunction and chaos you're going to have.
Yeah. What you don't want is that chaos. So you need to.
If you have a household, if you grew up in a household where there was conflict all the time and you're very comfortable with conflict, what do I call it? I call it the drama quotient. What is your quotient for drama? Like if you can be at peace when the drama's on 7, 8, 9, and you're just like, it's whatever. If you get with somebody that doesn't know how to navigate that space, both of y'all gonna be miserable. Don't do it. I'm just gonna give you a hard no. just a strong no. No, don't do it. But yeah, so you need to know how you manage conflict and then learn how to care about other people's concerns. Good Lord. You would think that this is so basic.
It is basic. But
to learn how to care about people's concerns.
You think you know what? You don't think about that because when people get married, it's all about themselves. Like, what is this person going to do for me? They don't, it's not like you actually think about, oh, how can I, let me make sure this person is okay. Your first thought is really about yourself. And then you learn throughout the marriage, like, oh, somebody else is here. I need to do stuff differently. I can't live like I live in my own single house and what I used to do because that don't mesh well.
When I when I wanted to get married, I was 24. I was like, okay, let me start preparing for marriage. I think I told the story before. One of the things that I had to fix in me was I didn't care.
Oh yeah, I
didn't
saw
care.
that.
And when
We
and
were
I-
friends, so I knew about that.
and when I say I didn't care, I was selfish in what it is that I wanted, and I pursued that. And I didn't care how you felt about it. I didn't care what your thoughts were. I didn't care if it hurt your feelings. I did not care. And there was a level of pride
Really?
that I had in how much I didn't care. It was like, how much could I not care? And so I was surrounded by a group of friends who we would try to match how much we didn't care about these hoes.
I know, and I saw that because not toward me,
Right,
because
right,
we were friends,
right.
but I had friends. We had mutual friends, and so I was anyway.
Yeah.
You were using that on like some of our mutual friends, or that was coming off on
So
some
what
people
I
that
had-
I knew, and I was like
Yeah.
talking to those people saying, "Why you don't deal with? Why you don't even answer that beeper?"
Right. Exactly. But what I had
See
to
how
do.
long ago that was?
Yeah.
I said beeper.
Yeah, good gracious. Oh yeah, I was texting.
Yeah,
But what I had to do, I had to actually I had to retrofit caring into my language or my activities. I had to do
How
things.
did you undo that?
I'm telling you how I did it.
Okay.
I had to work backwards. I had to do things that people who cared about somebody would do, even though I didn't care. But I was like,
But you know what? You weren't like born that way. Something happened to you, and then you went into that mode. So you had to get
Yeah.
back to
right. But I was that way
Yourself.
for a smooth
a long time.
8-10 years.
Yeah.
But I had to like do things that people who cared about people would do, like ask you how you're doing. And
You
like
do that all the time.
and like mean it, like I want to know. Because before, if you know how you doing, that's just cursory. I really don't care how you're doing. But I would ask people how they're doing and like sit and wait for an
you
answer.
do that like regularly, not just with me, just with people in general.
That's when I started doing it.
Wow.
That's when I started doing it. Because
And
before,
you genuinely care.
yeah, I had to start learning how to care because I did not care.
Yeah.
And then I would
See, now it's a part of you.
yeah,
it's who
it's
you
a part
are.
of me. I did that, and then I began to take I began opening doors for people, but I was doing that for women. I was doing that already, but I was doing it with motives. And so I was doing it just out of the courtesy now. And I became more chivalrous. I guess that's the things that chivalry do. In my mind, I knew what chivalry was. And so I was like, let me start doing those things. Even though I don't care and I don't want, it's not that I didn't want to. I wanted to be a better person,
Yeah.
but I wanted to learn how to care. So as I started doing that more, I liked the response that I got.
Yeah, you've always been that way.
haven't always been that way.
Since I've known you, even when we were friends, you had that chivalry thing going on. I mean,
It was always with a motive, though.
but not with me.
You don't
'Cause we were
remember?
friends.
You don't remember? See, Bernie doesn't remember. When Bernie,
When?
so in our office, Bernie,
We used to work together.
Yeah, we used to work together. We sat right next to each other at work, and we had a team that was you had a team. The supervisor on the team, she was like everybody's mother. She was
Yeah.
black woman, very
Cool,
motherly,
real
cool. But you're gonna get your work done,
Right.
And so we all respected her and everything. And so when everybody on our team came to work, we all greeted each other with a hug. Like everybody went around and hugged everybody when you got in
Like
that
you
morning.
at church or something.
Yeah, it was like a church hug meeting. And so, we're the only office that probably did that.
Not
Only
division.
team,
Yeah.
division that did that. So when Bernie would hug me, I would hug her and I would slide my hand down her
I had
curves.
no idea. I never even felt
And
that.
I mean, clearly my hand is glazing across the cheek,
I never felt any of that.
the right cheek specifically,
Oh
or the
my
left cheek
God,
specifically.
Steve.
Because I mean, I'm coming down like this, like okay, the slide down, And so, how was I supposed to know that you didn't know I was doing that?
I had no idea you were doing that.
I don't know how you can know that I wasn't
because I didn't feel
caressing.
That. You weren't caressing.
It
You
was-
must
it
have been
was a-
real slick because I
it
didn't
was
feel.
a-
I would have, like, you remember that time? Well,
It would be
remember
very
we went
obvious
to
to
that-
somebody. It'd be very obvious to somebody who's like somebody who I don't do that to, which is nobody. Like if I were to do it to,
I never felt it until you told me you were doing that. I mean, I even feel it then, but it was obvious that time I told you happened to me when your cousin was at that funeral. I was like, you remember? I told you.
yeah,
When they hugged me, I was very uncomfortable. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
yeah.
But
See,
I know.
see.
I didn't. That's what I'm saying. I would have.
If I were to go up to church and hug
I would've
somebody like
felt
that,
that.
it would be very clear and obvious. But you didn't notice it.
I didn't feel any of it.
I did not know that she did notice. So I was like, oh, this is fair game now. So
I had no idea you were doing that.
I was like, thank you.
No, I didn't know.
I will take this and raise you in marriage.
I didn't even
Anyway,
know.
okay. So yeah, learning to care is what you need to do. So communicating your needs to your mate. So open communication, obviously, with your mate is important. But how do you communicate your needs to your mate? Do you want to go? Do you want to give a shot at this? How do you communicate your needs to your mate? I wrote down some things, but I want to give you a chance to. So number one is discover how you communicate information and how they receive information. So, and this is important because when you are just single and you don't have to worry about other people, you have your own way of communicating that seems very natural to you.
Yeah.
And there's things that you do that may seem presumptive, but in ways that you communicate that may seem presumptive, but when you communicate with somebody and they don't know you or they have a completely different understanding of words and triggers and whatever.
Or a communication styles. Some people like for example, I mean, your backgrounds. Like I grew up with a house full of siblings.
Yeah.
And we all talked at the same time. And we still do it to this day. You just get in where you fit in. Everybody knows exactly what everybody's talking about. In, go, bop, bop, bop. It's great. It's wonderful. That doesn't work in this house because he grew up where it was just 4 people and you wait to one person talk and then the next person talk and I'm asleep. I mean, you come from different backgrounds. So like if, when I used to cut you off a lot, yeah, but I'm much better. I'm much better. Come on now, 27 years, I'm much better.
You're much better.
Yeah.
Although you still do.
I know, but it's not as bad.
Okay.
But that's why, because it's different styles that people come from and it's just innate. It's like who you are. I interrupted you. See, sorry.
Yeah, you did. But I have notes up here so I can go back to it.
Okay. You were saying the first one, how to receive, and people receive it differently.
Yeah. It's important that you know about yourself that when you're trying to communicate is that somebody may not have a good understanding about what it is that you're saying. And it's not, you shouldn't take it for granted that I'm always, that the thing that you're saying is understood. You should make sure that there's confirmation that that the person understands you.
Yeah.
Next is planners planners communicate in a structured format and non-planners communicate ad hoc or in passing. So if you are a planner, you have to know, and normally when there's a connection between couples, there's one person who's a planner and the other person who's not.
But you're the planner in our relationship, but I'm not the planner, but I like structure. So I like that you plan. If you weren't a planner, I'd be miserable. I'd be sad. Because I like structure and order. So, but I just I don't want to plan it. I want you to do it. And then I follow the plan. It works so perfectly.
Yeah, that's why I married you. That's why I picked you.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing. But you need to know who you are in that.
Yeah.
And you need to know that when you're communicating with the other person, they're not you.
Right.
They're not you. manage the differences. Ooh. So when you have that difference of planner, non-planner, you communicate one style, you communicate the other style, there's going to create this wonderful thing that
Cocktail.
I talk about conflict. Why is this happening?
A cocktail of conflict. Oh, Joe is coming up again.
Why is that happening?
I don't know. Look at it showing us with our headphones on.
Oh, I don't know why that happened. That's weird.
Are we still live?
Yeah. I think we are. Yeah, we are. Sorry. So when you have the thing that comes up is conflict. And when conflict arises, you need to know how to manage that conflict. And that is a skill that you have to learn if you're going to be in a relationship. And there's because conflict, and this is what I wanted to say earlier, but I'll say it now. If you know how to manage conflict well, that creates boundaries.
Right.
If you do not know how to manage conflict well, it creates islands.
And isolation.
And everybody has their own
resentment.
island that they're on, and they 10 toes down. They're in protective mode. What are you afraid of? What are you trying to protect yourself from? You're in that mode, and you don't want to hear anything that anybody got to say, and you don't really care about coming to an agreement.
Yeah.
So conflict management is a skill that you have to have when you want to enter into a relationship and you're trying to communicate the needs, because there's going to be different ways, like the whole interrupting thing that you do so very well. It was a very high point of contention with us.
Yes, because he could have these long, when he's talking, but then he'll have this pause, which in my mind is a period.
It's a breath.
It's a period.
It's an inhale sign.
It is such a period.
And
it
then
is
she'll
a period.
jump in. I mean, you've seen it today. You've seen it today.
Yeah. So over time, I've learned that those are pauses and you're not done. So what helps me not to jump in, but to let you know, hey,
Right.
I need to say something. I just raise my hand like, excuse me.
And that's what I was getting to.
Excuse me.
That's what I was getting to, that you will, what we've figured out is that you think my breaths are pauses and you jump in. I feel like I can't get my point out because I never really got my point out because you interrupted me.
I thought it was a period. I didn't think it was a pause. I thought it was a period.
Oh, okay.
It's a pause though, but I didn't know that. I had to learn over the years.
Right. So the
you
management
were
of that
breathing.
conflict was, if you think I'm talking too long, you raise your hand, which gives a signal for me to shut up and stop talking or finish my point, and then let you jump
me in
in.
because I'm going to forget what I don't want to forget what I want to say to something that you just said right there.
Right. So that was our way of managing that.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing, and that's helped us for 27 years. For real.
Yeah,
No
we
lie.
don't even have we don't have conflict with that anymore.
No, we don't.
Like we used to earlier on.
So managing that conflict is very, very good. And so please, if you are trying to learn how to manage conflict better, know that this is something that you need to work on. And conflict, if you do it well, it creates boundaries. And conflict is supposed to be in your relationship because it's supposed to create the boundaries. For example, we have a couple that
Boundaries are good.
Yes, everybody knows boundaries are good.
Yeah.
There's a couple that we worked with, and they were having a lot of conflict. And when I was telling them that conflict creates the boundaries, and they were looking at the fact that they had conflict as something that they should not have, and they were getting mad at each other because there was not unity. There was not a connection. There was why do you always kind of disagree kind of thing? And they did not understand the purpose of conflict. And so when we explained it to them, it still took them a while to really accept it and understand it. But as we began to show,
Well, boundaries take you through the conflict to get to the unity. So then you know what you shouldn't and should do, what you can and can't do, what works and doesn't work. If everybody's all in there willy-nilly, you have to learn that stuff.
Yes.
That part.
I was saying that we didn't referee, but we coached them through a major conflict that they were having in their marriage that didn't need to be, it turned into combative conflict when it didn't need to be combative conflict. They just needed to understand what the other person was saying, and then realize that my boundary is this when it comes to whatever it is that we disagree with, and your boundary is that. And if we can agree to stay within those boundaries, then we don't have any conflict anymore.
Right.
And once we were able to walk them through that process, they were like, it was almost like they were upset and the emotions were
Right.
there, but the problem was solved.
Right.
But they
Just
were like,
do that right there. Just do that. And
but
then
they
you
still
don't
was
have
in
to
their feelings.
Right.
They still was in their feelings. So it was kind of like a win, but they tried to snatch defeat from victory because they wanted to still like, yeah, but you don't understand.
Their default.
Yeah.
They want to go back to their default or what they're used to.
So thank you for staying tuned
Yes.
so far. Please go ahead and like this if you think that we're providing some good information for you. It is very, very choppy and scattered because I'm tired and it's been a long day.
And he had a
Bernie
late
kept me
night.
up late last night.
Sorry.
After I went to bed at 2:00 the night before. But please go ahead and like and subscribe and turn on post notifications, as they say.
And I have them if they want to want us to talk about some other topics.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure to put them in the comments.
Yes, please. Okay, so back to the main question is, what happens when your communicated needs are not being met? You've done everything that you need to do. You've checked yourself. You've learned how to manage conflict. You've communicated clearly. Your decision making is on point, and everything is you're giving everything that you can give.
And you're aware of how you communicate.
All that stuff.
Okay.
And you're not getting what it is that you feel like you need to get.
Even though you've set out the boundaries, and it's like, I don't like this, and that person is still
not giving.
What do you do with that person? Whew.
Number one, you rule out yourself. That's the first thing that you do.
How do you do that?
You have to consider that you might not be perfect. You might not be. You might, because no one believes that they are perfect.
Wait, who are you? You're the one that's not getting what you need?
Yes.
So okay.
You have to rule out yourself because there may be something that you're doing that is preventing you from getting what you need. You have to rule that out first. It's very easy to start blaming, but you have to rule that out first.
You could also check with God to see if he's getting what he needs from you, because if he's not getting what he needs from you, then that's probably why you're not getting what you need.
Right. So Bernie's talking about my check yourself barometer. Whenever I feel like I'm not getting what I want or need from Bernie, I'm like, let me first go to God and be like, okay, God, this whole relationship thing that Bernie and I got going on, I'm the husband, she the wife. So in the Christendomness is, you are the husband and I'm the wife. So am I being a good wife to you, kingdom of God? Jesus.
And I just blame up all the time.
So I'm like, let me check to see if I'm being a good wife, and because he may be trying to show me what I'm not giving him by what Bernie's not giving me.
Right, that part.
And I was like, oh, let me before I start unleashing my wrath on Bernie, let me go ahead and check myself. So that's what. So you need to make sure that you're not at fault, because you might be the problem. You might not be the best boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, fiance that you think that you are. I was starting to say nobody ever thinks that they're perfect. But then when someone starts to show you the areas where you're not perfect, you defend your imperfection. I hate that. I hate when people do that.
Yeah.
It's like, did you not do, if you're not perfect, when I tell you the things that you're not perfect at, don't defend your imperfections and blame me for observing that you're not perfect. Just take this L and keep it moving. Anyway, number two, when you rule out yourself, reassess your communication style to see if it's working on that person. And what I mean by that is basically the things that you may think that you're good at communicating may have worked in other spaces, may have worked in other venues. And I'll tell this to business owners and politicians and people who have high executive positions that we've worked with, is that just because you are killing it in this industry doesn't mean that the communication that you have there is effective in your house.
Right.
Actually, it's probably not effective because you're bringing that industry
Energy.
speak and that command and control, that leadership from a subordinate or you'll get fired style to the home or to your husband or your wife, and then that's turning them off, and it doesn't comport to a happy home.
Right.
So you need to check that. I assume I'm wrong and I seek understanding, not to be understood. Oh yeah, that's what I said earlier. Like whenever something that is not going my way, I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Threw myself out. And then third is gain understanding so I can learn how to communicate in the language that she understands or that they understand. This takes a lot of self-awareness because you're not getting what you need. And this with this approach, your first step is to check yourself and correct yourself.
So first of all, let's take a step back.
Okay.
Because if somebody's going to do that when they're not getting what they need, and then they check themselves, you're talking about a level of maturity from Jump Street, because everybody not right there where they can actually do that. Like, okay, wait, let me look at myself. That's a whole nother level of maturity before people start immediately going to the blame game.
Yeah. That's why I'm telling y'all to do it right now because it's a different level. And if you've been successfully married for 27 years, then you can speak on these things.
Yeah. And hopefully they can learn it early in life.
Yeah. But yeah, that's and these are things that I have to do, that I have practiced doing, that I've shared with people to do, because it humbles yourself. It puts yourself in a humble position to be like, I'm not the greatest. Let me make sure that my inadequacies are not causing this. And once you rule that out, then you ask the question, you ask questions to gain clarity instead of trying to clarify. And discover if they just don't understand. And I do this at work a lot. So if I'm not getting what I need, I'm like, well, maybe I didn't communicate this clearly. So I'll ask questions of them to see if they can clarify what I have communicated to them, if they can provide clarity or provide an explanation to what I communicated to them. And it may be like, oh, you thought when I said I wanted you to do this every week, that you thought that it meant like you figuratively, or instead of like
I'll be
every
getting
week.
mad at your work because I'm like, you should have told them. Like, never mind.
Yeah, so I just ask questions like, so when I asked that, what did you understand? Like, oh, okay. And then the next thing I do is I ask questions to find out what information is missing. So this goes to your story of the gentleman who was at our boot camp, and remember the couple? This couple, they had he was like, "What are you listening to? What do you hear?"
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite couple. Tell
that story.
They were from they came from Trinidad?
Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
No. They were.
It was something about
There was
an
another
island.
couple that came from Michigan. They were getting ready to take a job over at Tobago.
Okay. But so they were, we was doing the boot camp and they were going through the woods, and the man had to lead the woman. The woman was blindfolded. And this man, when the woman, he was some kind of
He was a
FBI.
He was in law enforcement.
Law enforcement. Well, most of the times when I see people do this exercise, the woman's blindfolded, the man just telling her to walk in, kind of leaves is hitting her face, she running in the spiderweb, all kinds of things. But this was my favorite couple because this man said, before he told her to take one step, he said to her, What do you hear?
So the context is
I was like, oh my God.
this is one of the activities that we did on our boot camp where we would blindfold
That's
the wife.
not them, is it though?
I think it is.
I didn't picture him like that. I don't remember. It's so long ago.
I think it was them.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But anyway.
We blindfold the wife, and then we have him lead her through the woods without being able to touch her.
Yeah.
And so you see those branches and stuff, those leaves, they be smacking women in the face if the husband doesn't move those out
Right.
the way, and then she gets upset
Or
because
tell her to walk to the
Yeah.
left so it don't hit her or whatever. He
Yeah.
just,
So
no,
it's a
not a lot
team
of details.
Right. It's a team building activity that we did. And so as you see, they're standing at the top of a creek bed where there's a very steep slope that they have to
Yes.
go down. He sees the steep slope that they have to go down. She is clueless.
Yes, but my point is we don't start at that slope. We start like in the entrance of the woods.
Right.
And we only took a few steps into the woods and you could hear the creek, the water.
I thought he said that when they were at the creek bed.
No.
Are you sure?
I picture
think,
in my head. It's
because
like,
it wouldn't matter until then. They didn't know they were going there. It happened at the creek bed.
I think he was just letting her know about her surroundings. It was almost like he was just doing a thing about like, what do you hear? And she's like, I hear water. I felt like he
said that because they were about to go down
Okay.
in the water and cross it.
well,
That's why he said it.
he was just very detailed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he said it before they got to the
No,
water.
he didn't.
He was doing a whole lot of awareness stuff around her.
Anyway, go ahead and tell the story. So
No, that was it.
Oh. So this is us in the creek bed, and this is the water that she was saying that they had to hear. And so this is, I think, where they had to come down. Is very
And go across.
Yeah, it's very high. She's blindfolded, and the creek bed was low. I liked it when it was high,
Oh,
like
Lord.
knee
Sometimes
high.
it would be high. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. This was 2016.
Wow.
No, 2014.
Wow.
This is over 10 years ago. We've been in the game for a minute. So yeah, that is the asking for ask questions to find out if what information is missing, and that was when he was asking what do you hear, because he did not know from her perspective what she was attuned to, and for him to, if he were to just start telling her to move down here and go do this and go do that without asking her what is it you hear, so that he can understand where does she understand that there's water nearby. And then after that,
It was before we got to the water, because that's why it made me so excited. Like, oh my gosh, this man is just talking about just stuff in her surroundings.
that's because we were about to go down into the water.
No, we weren't there
Yes,
yet.
it
We
was.
were on our
Anyway.
way.
So my point is, he shared with her. He asked her a question to find out what she knew, and so he can fill in the missing information.
And I mean, what it showed was that he was concerned because she was blindfolded. He knew, I need to be fill in all these gaps that she can't see.
Yeah.
So he took on that concern and knew that he needed to do that with a whole bunch of details.
Yeah. And even though that was specifically for that activity, the point is, if you ask questions to find out what information they're missing, that will give you more information as to okay, maybe I need to communicate differently. And all these things are things that you are doing to check yourself, to okay, let me see if I'm wrong. Let me see how I can provide information better. Let me see if I can get, if they really understand what I'm saying. Let me just see. And then once you get that understanding, and if you find out, okay, you do understand, you don't have any missing information, and you still are not giving me what I want, then you need to ask them question, do you really want to be together? I mean, you need to ask yourself that. Do I really want to be with this person or not? And you need to have some very honest conversations about that. Okay, because some people love the fact that they are in a relationship more so than the person that they are in a relationship with.
Yeah.
They like being having a wife, especially if you have a ring on and you attach your not your identity, but you attach some pride to the fact that you're married. To not be married or to be divorced or to get divorced after 10, 15, 20 years, if that's embarrassing to you, it may be better for you to stay in a miserable marriage. I'm not saying a miserable relationship. or marriage, that is just not is not what it is that you want to do, and you need to have that honest conversation with yourself and then that person to see if that's something that you want to do. So how do you know when it's time to move on? Then this is the question.
Uh-oh. This getting going. This is the tricky part.
So the question is, how much should you put in and how much should you put up with before it's time for you to move? How much should you put in and how much should you put up with before it is time to move? So I need to speak to it from the dating and engaged status and the married status, because there's two different standards. So the dating and engaged, when that person is not concerned, it's time to move on. When that person is not concerned with your needs, your desires, or your preferences. Your needs, your desires, or your preferences. Needs, you've probably heard of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And there are 5 different hierarchies of needs. There's the physiological needs that you have, like air, food, and so forth. There's a security need, housing, shelter, and to feel safe. There's the love and belonging need. People have a need to feel loved or belong to a group or to a person or to somebody. There's the esteem need, which is to have self-value and self-worth and for people to respect you.
Yeah.
That's a need. And then there's a self-actualization need, which means that you have some measure of purpose and you're doing something meaningful in your life. If the person that you're with, like we talked going back to when I don't care about you and I have no concern for those people. If a person that you're with and you're dating or you're engaged to does not have any concern or care or sensitivity to those needs, then it's time for you to start pulling back. It's time for you to start withdrawing yourself from that relationship. And that's withdrawing your time, withdrawing your access, and so forth. I call that rolling discovery, which means how much of I'm only giving you access and insight into me as much as you're considerate of me. And if you start to do things that show me that you're not considerate, I'll start to pull back this level of access and discovery.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Any thoughts?
Especially in dating. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I used to do a lot of mentor with young women earlier on that would, come to me and I would mentor them about in their relationships, like dating relationships. And I had this one person, they would just lay all their cards out. I'm like, girl, stop putting all your cards. You laying out the whole deck. I was like, that's too much. He don't need to know all this stuff about you. Like when you just met, it's just too, she just give way too much. So when you're talking about that rolling discovery or rolling all that back, whatever, at the same time, you shouldn't even be rolling all that out. I know that that's different than what we're talking about.
Fine.
But it just made me think about, I was trying to tell that person just like all that stuff you're talking about, roll back. She should not be rolling all that out too much at the beginning anyway. If it's if you're not even getting those things that you were talking about.
Yeah, the rolling discovery is something that I thought about and kind of identified as a dynamic for how you give and measure with what it is you're receiving. So if your needs are not being met, you start to pull that thing back. So the next one is, so if the person's not concerned with your needs, your desires are, simply put, the things that you want to do. It doesn't matter why you want to do them. If you want them and they're not concerned with that, that's an issue. You need to start pulling yourself back. Because sometimes we see this a lot. If somebody doesn't understand why you want to do something, then it's not valid to them. It's like, I don't understand it, so it doesn't make sense.
And then
it doesn't make sense, so therefore I'm not doing it. And
and they negate it as if, like it's only their world, and only things that make sense in your world is what we should be doing. Stop.
Yeah. And if you can't put forth a a dissertation or a legal argument as to why this makes sense for me to do, then I won't participate in it with you because it doesn't make sense to me, even though it's a desire of yours. But the things that person
He
wants to
wants,
do,
yeah.
or she,
Yeah.
that person wants to do, if you don't participate, then it's like you're not supportive.
Being disrespectful. Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
it's crazy.
desires and then preferences are the things that you prefer versus what your mate prefers. And I have to I condition that on the things that you prefer versus what your mate prefers, because and we used to use this a long time ago. Like if you say I want to go to Wendy, I mean not Wendy's, Olive Garden, but then the other person says, oh, I want to go to Outback, and you always going to Olive Garden, and you're never saying, okay, let's go to Outback this time. That's showing that they don't care or don't have concern about your preferences.
Yeah.
And so what I used to do back in the, I still do it. I do it. It's so much. It's so ingrained into what I do and who I am.
What do you do?
I would ask you what you wanted to do, and even though I didn't want to do it, I would do it anyway. I would ask you for things. I would intentionally, I would intentionally take an L so that you can get what you want, so that you would feel like you're getting what you want in the marriage. Because you would always be like, I don't care. We can go to Outback.
We would all,
it doesn't matter to me.
I do remember.
Yeah.
Because I was just going to say, because a lot of times I don't really care. And so you would have to, you would make ways so that it would be my way. Like you say, like a movie or something. I was like,
Right.
I don't care, whatever. It's like, nope, we're going to go see what you want to see. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, even though I didn't want to go see it. But some people will just be like, oh, good, yeah, we're going to do it my way. But then when that happens, internally, your spouse feels like they don't really care. And they're not concerned about my preferences.
Yeah.
And then that builds up resentment. And it's unspoken because, especially if you're ceding to what that person wants and you don't ever feel like that person is ceding to you, it feels one-sided. And then you may not know how to manage that conflict because it's just difficult. So based upon their concerns for your needs, desires, preferences, ask yourself, is this person a good investment of my time? If they are not good investment of your time, then you need to start doing that slow rolling with the disclosure. Pull back that disclosure.
Yeah, because what you don't get back is time.
Right. I wrote down, the more you demonstrate concern with these three things, the more that I will disclose of myself, and the less you demonstrate these concern of these three things, the less that I will disclose. So if you're dating somebody, and essentially, if you're dating somebody and they're not showing you the concern for your preferences, your needs, or your desires, then you need to start pulling that thing back. I know it may not be, you may have seen or hoped that there's some future in that. There is misery. That's where the future is. Strife, chaos, combative conflict, and then feelings of not inadequacy, feelings of emptiness because you're not getting what you want.
This is dating?
Yes, that's dating.
Yeah.
So do that. Now, if you're married.
So sorry.
We came up in an era when they were like, divorce is not an option. Divorce is not an option. And so it was like, you're not getting divorced. Do not get divorced.
You know, I'll take it back farther.
Okay.
Because even the way I kind of grew up very in a real religious home, whatever. And I just kind of remember that I felt like they didn't, I don't know if they talked about this a lot, whatever, but it's like I believe that they believe that you could not get a divorce unless your spouse died. I mean, you cannot remarry unless your spouse was, and this was like Church of God in Christ, Holiness, Pentecostal. If you couldn't remarry unless your spouse was no longer here.
Yeah. I mean, that we came up with that too. There's some Bible for that. But that only applies to the people to whom it applies, who were Christians because people were getting divorced anyway.
For years now,
Yeah.
a long time in the church, pastors, preachers.
Yeah, and getting remarried, which is crazy. So one of the things that we, as we work with couples, we intentionally did not do is we do not put our values about divorce on other couples. We came up in an era where divorce is not an option, and
Right.
so from our perspective, we had to work things out because divorce is not an option. In other situations that of people that we know, a lot of couples that we know, it wasn't an option until it was,
Yeah.
and then it became an option.
Yeah, there was no working out. It tried to work and just did not work.
Yeah, and so if you are considering whether you should get divorced or not, how do you know when it's time for you to move on? There's two scriptures that I need to highlight. And first one is in Matthew chapter 19, and I don't Matthew chapter 18, and I'm gonna read that or give us a quick synopsis of that because that gives context to the next scripture. But Matthew chapter 18, this is the Gateway Bible, and we're talking about the parable of the merciful servant. Remember the parable where the man had been forgiven of his gifts of his debts by the king, and then when the king let him go, and he went and he saw somebody who owed him some money, and then he grabbed that man by his neck and choked him out, and then he was like, "Pay me back with the money that you owe me." And so that man begs, like, "Please don't be patient with me and let me pay that back." The man was like, "No, I'm not letting you pay that back, boy. Run me my money, fool."
My water ran out.
Come on. This is what I get.
Thirsty. Sorry.
But he was like, "Run me my money." And so he threw the man in prison until he paid off his debt. And then another dude that was there, he saw this happen. And so he went back and he told the master everything that had happened. And so the king told the king everything that happened. And so the king went back and said, go get homie. And then he said, "You wicked servant." He said, "I canceled all the debts of all that debt of yours because you begged me. Should you have had mercy on a fellow servant just as I had on you?" In anger, the master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay all he owed. Now, this is a parable, and the parable is talking about, and we all have heard that question, like, how many times should I forgive?
7
times 7? Yeah, that's what this is. And Jesus is like, no, 7 times 70. 7 times 77 times. And then he says, "The kingdom of heaven is like," and then that's when he goes into this story. And so the kingdom of heaven is like, and I wrote it down better. Where's my notes? So the kingdom of heaven is like forgiving your brother or sister from your heart, just as God had mercy on you, or else the Father will treat you like the wicked servant and hand you over to be tortured until you pay back all, which is the mercy that you did not give, that you did not owe. Because when you look at that last
That
verse,
you owed. You said did not owe.
or that you owed.
Yeah.
When you look at that last verse, it says, "This is how the Heavenly Father will treat you unless you forgive your brother." Where? From your heart. From your heart. So this is talking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
And so the emphasis is on the kingdom of God is like this. Forgive your brother 70 times 7, so that because your Father has forgiven you of all the things that you have done. And if you don't forgive them, then you are like the wicked servant, and I'm going to turn you over to be tortured until you start paying back all of the mercy that I showed you that you owe that other person. That's what the kingdom of heaven is like. So that's chapter 18. Chapter 19. The next chapter, divorce.
Why do you think they talked about divorce next?
I'm gonna explain why. Well, I'll give you my reason why. I don't know if this is the reason. I thought it was, but then I was like, maybe. Anyway, so when Jesus had finished talking about all these things, the Pharisees was like trying to trap him. This one, they was like, yo, Jesus, The Pharisees asked him, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason?" And Jesus like, "Are you dumb? Haven't you heard at the beginning of creation, at the beginning, the Creator made male and female and said, for this reason, a man should leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate." Dude, don't you remember that, Pharisee? And the Pharisee is like, yeah, but then why Moses command men to command that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away? What are they talking about? What did Moses do? Deuteronomy chapter 24 tells a story. Verse number 1. If a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her, he writes her a certificate of divorce and gives it to her and sends her from his house. And if she leaves this house and becomes the wife of another man, and the second man dislikes her and writes a certificate of divorce and gives it to her and sends her from his house, or if he dies, then the first husband who divorced her is not allowed to marry her again after she has been defiled. That will be detestable in the eyes of the Lord. Do not bring sin upon the land of the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. So what the Pharisees are talking about is, back in the day, men was just divorcing women for no reason at all. I don't like you. You stink. No, get out here. Here's a divorce. And Moses is like, okay, go ahead and write her a certificate of divorce and she can leave. And then she would go marry another man. And then, he was like, I don't like you either. And he would write her a certificate of divorce. They were just getting rid of women like crazy.
Wow.
And so he was saying that if you do this, you cannot, the woman has been defiled and you cannot marry
the first husband couldn't marry her
go
again, back
right.
to the same woman or a woman. It sounded like it said she couldn't go back. He could not remarry her. The first husband couldn't.
Because she's been defiled. Right. So that's what the Pharisees are talking about. Like, why Moses command that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away. And this is what Jesus said. Jesus replied, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard. Your hearts were hard. Then he said, but it was not that way. It was not this way from the beginning. What beginning? What he said up here, that at the beginning, the Creator made male and female, and he made husband and wife and so forth and so on. It wasn't this way when God made man and woman and male and female, and he said, y'all going to be joined together and let no man put asunder.
Yeah.
Separate. It wasn't that way from the beginning. Now, this is Jesus talking. I tell you, Jesus replied, I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery. Now, I don't know what be going on in the world where people be getting, the Lord told me that this is going to be my second marriage. The Lord told me that you were the one. I don't know nothing about that. I'm just saying you what Jesus said.
But maybe somebody committed adultery.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying what Jesus said. Then the disciples said to him later on, if this is a situation between husbands and wife, is it better just not to marry? Like, why are we doing all this? Jesus was like, here it is. Not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. So were you, and there's debate whether if you have been given a call to marry somebody, then this word is for you. But if you went ahead and married somebody and you weren't supposed to marry them, and this word wasn't for you, so you can get a divorce. I don't know if that holds up scripturally. There's also the other argument is, if you have heard this word and you know it wasn't this way from the beginning, and you are struggling and you can't accept the fact that I have to do what the Bible says in terms of staying married to this person.
Heart is hard.
and your heart is hard, then you can't do it. You cannot do it. Then this word, it says,
Should you not have gotten
everyone
married?
can accept this word. You can't accept it. You can't. I'm not going to say it's not for you, but
Should you not
can't
have
accept
gotten
it.
married?
I don't know if you should have not gotten married, but what Jesus is saying is that you can't accept this word. Like you're not him. Like you're not her. This is supposed to be something that you're supposed to do. This is how God created it, but you just can't do
But
it.
only those whom
But only
it
those who
given.
it has been given. For there are eunuchs. Now he talks about abstaining from sex. That there are eunuchs who were born that way, and there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs by others, and there were those who chose to live like eunuchs, talking about monks, people who are not having sex, for the sake of the
Kingdom
of heaven. This is the one who can accept this
Should
should
accept
accept it. The one who should accept this,
The one who can.
or the one who can accept this, should accept this. So what does all this mean?
I don't know. That's a lot. That's all what we just read and what's going on in the world is a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I'm not talking about what's going on in the world. I'm talking about what does this mean in
just
terms of
saying.
like if you feel like you're not getting what you want from your spouse
Okay. And you married.
and you're married. Jesus is saying, if you can't accept this, then it's not for you. It's not how it's supposed to be in the beginning. Y'all are supposed to stay married. But if you are going through so much torment, hell, and so forth, and your heart is hardened, it's not for you. But remember, going back to 18, if your heart is hardened, you owe some mercy, because the things that you asked me to forgive you for, I need you to forgive your spouse for that. The same things you be asking me to forgive you for, or not the same things, but with the level of forgiveness that you want from me, I need you to show that to your spouse. And if you can't do it, then the kingdom of heaven is like, if you're not doing that, treating you like a wicked servant and setting you up to be tortured until you can give that mercy that you should be giving.
What if you're being tortured because the person's not changing and they don't think nothing wrong with them, and you're just being tortured emotionally, not physically, not like beating or whatever, but you supposed, are you supposed to show mercy like the Lord showed you mercy and just suffer?
Well, it's two different questions. Are you supposed to show mercy? Yes. Are you supposed to suffer? That's a different question, and it depends on what suffering means. You have to go back through this whole list and be like, okay, am I contributing to that? What have I done? Do you not understand? Have you ruled out the fact that it might be you, or do you think you're just so perfect? So if you've done all those things and you're like, I can't do it, I don't want to play no more, then not everybody can accept this word. This word is not for you. That those who can accept it, and it's a period. Those who can accept this can accept it, period.
You just sit in the silence. That's what you keep doing. You just keep saying that, like, those who could do it, and those who can't.
Yeah. There's no out.
He said what he said.
Yeah. There's no out.
Like,
there's no like to make you feel better about it. Like,
I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, it's not meant to make you feel good.
I know, because I don't feel good every time you keep saying it.
Because
like,
even if you get married again,
what?
Even if you get divorced,
I was gonna leave that alone.
And you get married again, adultery.
That's like a lot of pastors and stuff.
That's what Jesus said. Y'all can come from me in the comments if you want to. I'm gonna just point the Lord to you. I'm gonna just point the Lord to be like, they complaining about your word. I mean,
I feel like
that's
why my mom.
You can check me if you feel like, you can check me in the comments if you think that I have misinterpreted the meaning of these scriptures. That's why I wanted to put the scriptures on screen and highlight what I was reading so that you can follow along with me and see it. And I'm bringing in the previous chapter 18, about forgiveness, because it talks about your heart is hard. But then it talks about, in 19, you have to forgive this person. Well, in 18, it talks about you have to forgive this person from your heart. But then in 19, it talks about your heart is hard. So how you gonna forgive this person from your heart if you got a hard heart? And this is the message that I tell couples when they talk about, I want a divorce. I don't feel like being here no more. I don't want to play. I'm like, so I read them that scripture, both of them. I was like, so do you have a hard heart? Because to me, if the answer is yes, I have a hard heart, then I remind them that, okay, then you just know that if you don't forgive, if you don't soften your heart, then 18 applies. The kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is like this. And it gave a whole scenario about a man who was wicked and what happened to him as a result of that wickedness because he did not forgive like the Lord forgave him. And if that's what you're standing on, that's okay. You just got to deal with that consequences.
That's why people should think twice before you just jump into marriage. It's really a big deal.
And that's the biggest story
it's really a big deal.
That's the biggest thing of them all.
Think twice.
You really need to think twice before you jump out here and talk about, I'm trying to get married.
Yeah.
And the person you want to get married to.
Yeah. You need to be sure.
You really, really, really need to have a good understanding about yourself. You really need to have a good understanding about how you manage conflict, how you make decisions. You really need to have a good understanding about who that person is and how you all can manage conflict together. And you need to have a good internal practice of checking yourself to make sure that you are not the problem. Mm-hmm. And then you need to, like, this is to those all of you all who are dating or engaged. You need to have these conversations with yourselves as you engage in these relationships. Let me single myself out. You need to have these conversations with yourself. I'm not singling myself out.
No, it's a delay, I think. When you be doing that, eventually it'll go. It doesn't happen as fast.
I hit the wrong button.
Oh.
Anyway, you need to have these conversations with yourself because if you don't, then you'll find yourself in something that it's going to be very difficult for you to manage. It's going to be very difficult for you to manage. And because we've seen couples do a lot of different things over these 25 years, and we've seen various variations of the same issue, we can predict how things are going to happen just because we see the patterns. Mm-hmm. We know, okay, you're saying this, you're doing that, okay, we know what's going to happen next. And when we observe that, we try to tell them in advance. I had a conversation yesterday. Jesus. Had a conversation yesterday with a couple that we met with they came to our premarital boot camp. This was 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago maybe. Came to our premarital boot camp, went through the boot camp. Day one, saw big red flags.
I pointed them out, but
big red flag energy.
People have to, people don't listen.
And we were like, hey, you see these things, right?
You see, this is how this person makes decisions.
And
You okay with that?
We saw the patterns on day one during an activity that we were doing in the woods.
Out in them same woods.
Yep. Out in the same woods.
Pointed them out.
We saw an activity that we were doing in the woods. We saw the patterns and we pointed them out. We tried to coach them through it. Month one from their marriage, that issue showed up.
Of course it did.
It never went away. And it still shows up. And they're talking about, how to that. But and and he wanted my advice about the agreement, the document. So yeah. These are the things that people be struggling with. These are the things that we have identified. And so hopefully this information was beneficial to somebody. And that's one of the things that, because we've been doing, because we like talking about the nuances. People don't be talking like this on podcasts or on relationships, premarital counseling. They don't go into this level of specificity in the nuance.
It's the nuances. Those little things that make people miserable and want to not be in the marriage anymore. It's those little things that if you could actually fix and change, it's just a little switch.
Yeah.
But the noise is so big.
Right. So that's all we have. Do I have anything else? I think that's it.
That was it.
If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe to our content. Let us know that this is something that was helpful for you. If you disagree with anything, please let us know that too. I love the smoke.
Let him know he loves the smoke. I don't like to smoke.
I love the smoke. So I'm definitely here for it because I want to, because I don't presume that I'm always right.
Right.
If I'm wrong, please check me on that. But we definitely would love to hear your comments, love to hear your feedback about this. Let us know if there's something that you want us to talk about. And we'll be back next week. I know this was like crazy long.
It was way too. It's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I
It
know.
went way long.
I mean, we started late though.
Yeah.
It is what it is. All right, y'all. The good thing, I don't got to edit.
I was just going to say, you don't even got to
Peace.
edit nothing. Bye.